Okay, this discussion now is going to revolve around how to keep kids on the playing field and out of the operating room. This came from an article that I saw that appeared on the opinion page in the Union Tribune. It's interesting how articles of this nature that have some real meat to them and are serious topics are always discussed on the opinion page or in the main news, but never on a sports page. So it's almost like saying sports are only for the fluff or opinions, but anything serious, then we have to treat it in a different section. That's a little sideline, but it kind of gives an indication of where we put the emphasis on some of the things that we do. Now, in this topic, keep your kids on a playing field, it was written by a couple of doctors, Andrews and Levine, who are probably are the most respected doctors in the baseball and other sports too field. They do many of the operations and they look closely at some of the biomechanics and things like this that involve in sports. So they really bring out the need for proper conditioning, not overplaying the athletes, have them play a multitude of sports, really doing all the things that we should be doing and are usually not doing. Now, you've heard me probably say many times before, all kids should not specialize in any one sport. They should play a multitude of sports and then specialize in their later teenage years and when they become adults. But specializing from the early years only eventually will lead usually to injury. And the main causes of injury: not being physically prepared and overstress, overuse, doing too much of the same thing over and over. So these are some of the things that are recommended for change. But one thing that is always lacking, and I keep harping on it all the time, and I'm really disappointed that the doctors didn't bring this out, and that is technique. This should be number one. The very first thing any youngster should do is learn technique. With sorrow, this is not done in our schools. But physical education, if we look at the education part, this is what they should be doing. They're dealing with sports. They should learn how to execute the sports. They should learn the technique, how to throw a ball, how to run, how to hit a ball, how to kick a ball, and so on. These are the basic skills that everyone should learn from the very earliest years. Now, we usually take it for granted that these are all innate. They all learned it. Well, you take a look at most people, you can say, well, everybody knows how to run. Well, that's true. But how well do they run? Why don't we look at this part of the equation? Now, you can take a family, mother, father, son, and daughter. Do they all run the same way? It could be the same family, yet they're all going to look different. So that means everyone can be improved in their running, or throwing, or hitting, or kicking, whatever it might be. But we get so concerned with playing the game, we forget about teaching the skills. Even in soccer. How many of those kids spend time learning how to execute a good kick? Or how to run correctly? If they spend more than 1 or 2 hours, I'd be surprised. Maybe amazed is a better term. Coaches don't do this. And they'll tell you they don't have the time. They only have 2 weeks before the first game. Of course, in 2 weeks you can't do any teaching of technique. Technique takes a little bit longer than 2 weeks. This is why it rightfully belongs in the schools. But if it's not done in the schools, it's not done on the playgrounds, it's not done on the fields, coaches don't do it, where are they going to learn this? This is where we have our problem. And until we resolve this problem, injuries will continue. We're not going to keep kids out of the operating room. They will be there until we address the lack of technique teaching, and then the development of the physical abilities that are specific to that technique. It's one thing to develop the physical abilities. It's another thing to develop the abilities that are specific to how the skill is executed in performance of that sport during a game. World of difference between the two. So we have a major problem on hand. We give a lot of lip service to these things, but we're not doing anything about it. But yet this is what we need. We have to look at what is going on, how we're not teaching technique. And I did a little experiment when my daughter was playing soccer and I became the coach, as typically happens to most parents. So of course everybody knew my background. So I said, well, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to teach everybody the skills. And I even tried getting the parents involved, had a meeting at my house, told them what I wanted to do. And I filmed all of the kids and went over and showed them this is what they did. And of course they all giggled and laughed, when they saw themselves running and kicking. But I tried working on this. Well, before you know it, the first game came and we didn't do that much. We didn't have that much time for the strategy of the game and so on. And to make a long story short, even during the week I tried emphasizing the skills. I said, this is going to be more important. Even if we don't have a winning season, you're going to have the skills to enable you to move on and become a better player as the years go by. Well, it didn't work out. Kids didn't want to do it. They weren't used to this. They were not used to some of them telling them, hey, this is how you can kick it better. This is how you can throw better. This is how you can do something better. They weren't accustomed to this. They were accustomed to being told, go out and do this, go over here, go over there, do this, run after that girl, beat that one. See, it's all strategy related. So they can't even accept any criticism, whether it be negative or positive, of their performance. This is how far it's gotten. So, how are we going to correct it? I don't know. It probably has to start with the universities. They have to teach these future teachers how to teach skills. And this should become a prerequisite or a requisite in the schools. Principals have to be known. This is what physical education is all about. It is a very important subject. You don't treat it as a slough-all and throw 200 kids in one class. It's got to be a small class. And teaching has to go on in that class. Not merely throw out the ball or, well, let's see how fast you can run a mile today. We're all going to run miles. We're all going to run laps. That's a cop-out. That's not teaching. Anybody can do this. Get the janitor to come in and he'll do it just as good a job. You don't need a teacher. So, if we really want to do our youngsters a service, let's get them learning skills, technique number one. Then, as the doctors bring out in the article, let's develop their physical abilities. But once you learn technique, get the physical abilities, now you're looking at the potential for developing a good athlete. Then they'll be able to play and carry out the strategy that the coaches want. But until this time, we have a big problem on our hands, and it's time we recognized it and dealt with it.